Great. So yeah, I can introduce myself. My name is Riley McDonald. I'm senior solution architect at Qlik, working in pre-sales in Germany for the last 3 years. Been working with Qlik products for probably like 8 or 9 years now. Kind of losing track. Mostly specialized, doing a lot of stuff, kind of like API work and things like that. So I write a lot of extensions in my free time, etc. And I've been kind of helping out lately in our OEM team, so working a lot more with OEM customers as well. So customers that kind of want to embed our software, Qlik software, in their products. So I met some of you guys as well. And I want to go through two kind of topics today. Two interesting use cases which I found. They're kind of related to the challenges of how you can get working with big data. So things like how can you get data near real time, or how can you load a lot of data quickly in the most efficient way into Qlik. So it's the topics Qlik Replicate and Kafka streams. So I kind of split it out to both, kind of two separate topics, although they could be combined because you can actually create Kafka streams with Qlik Replicate. But I will start off with the first one, which is focusing, and I'll go into the full presentation mode for that for now, is how you can consume Kafka streams in Qlik Sense. So this is a question that I've got a lot, and I've saw some kind of workarounds in the past of people creating extensions with WebSockets to get the data and stuff. But I found a generally easier way to read data from existing Kafka streams in Qlik Sense, which I think it could be useful to share with other people as well and get their feedback. So yeah, what are Kafka streams? Just maybe a bit explanation of this picture, which I took directly from Confluent's website, which they offer kind of a Kafka cloud platform. So I think most of you probably have heard of it. Basically, what Kafka is doing really well is kind of dealing with real-time data, capturing certain events, sending it across in a Kafka stream, and then being consumed by some other app. It has a lot of different use cases, kind of reporting even to data management or data replication, etc. You can use it for a lot of different things. Generally, what you have is kind of a Kafka broker, which has kind of maintaining the connections and everything, and something maybe called a Kafka producer, which is, as the name comes, is kind of producing data. And then you have maybe a Kafka consumer, which is really focused on just consuming the data, so kind of like a client. These are kind of the things that I always hear when people talk to me about Kafka streams. I just repeat them here. So what did I do recently to kind of get Kafka up and running? So the first thing that I did was I actually got my own demo system completely running with all the components of that's needed to run a Kafka demo system. So this, of course, not that much to do with Qlik, but still important for the overall demo and testing this out. And what I did was I took a Docker compose image from the GitHub, or YAML file from the GitHub link you see above, and I created this kind of all these containers together, which contains the whole platform. So I took this is kind of maintained by Confluent, which is this company which does, I think they offer some Kafka cloud offerings, and seem to be quite popular for companies that choose to use Kafka streams. They're often using this platform, I find. And it seems to be mostly open source as well, what they offer. And what's actually very useful for us in this use case is that they also have like a REST proxy service, which allows us to interact with Kafka via this basic REST calls, which makes everything really quite easy and nice to use, and easy to integrate with Qlik Sense as well. So that's essentially how I was able to read the Kafka data in Qlik Sense with our normal REST connector and this REST proxy service. Just one of the many services that you kind of need, and as every one of these kind of boxes is a different Docker container. So that was pretty easy to get up and running just for testing. And then basically, so I then created a topic, which is kind of how I send data from a producer into this topic. That's what Kafka kind of, it's kind of almost like, I wouldn't want to say table, but you basically send certain data on this topic, and then
Riley,
a consumer
sorry.
can, yeah.
We don't see anything. It looks gray.
Okay.
So do you have it on the wrong screen maybe?
No. Did you not see anything the whole time?
No, we saw the presentation, and now we see your web browser, and what's in front of your web browser appears gray, at least to me. I think to the audience as well.
Let me see what's going on.
I just agreed.
I will share again. I think now it got disconnected for whatever reason.
No, you're still sharing, but we are seeing your web browser with let's say 100 tabs, and what's on top of your web browser we don't see.
Okay. I only have one web browser open. So
maybe just restart the sharing from scratch.
Yeah, I don't think I'm actually sharing my screen.
No, you do.
It's telling me that I'm not. But we'll see.
Okay.
You should see it now, I guess.
It's better.
Yeah. Great.
Good. Yeah, so I use this REST proxy to interact with the Kafka streams, which was really quite easy to get going, quite useful. And I took some demo data that I had to create to kind of simulate the Kafka stream. In my case, it's data from my car. So I just had some data basically about location and speed and altitude and things like that, which I can get per API from my car. So that's the kind of data set that I use for this. And to set it up, it's quite easy to read in Qlik Sense, I should say. So the first step that you need to do is you need to create a consumer with this through this API. So you just send a post call to your Kafka server with this endpoint and this body, which basically says, okay, what is my consumer? What's the name here? And the format, and a couple other parameters as well. And then you need to subscribe to a certain topic. So as I said before, I created a topic just with plain JavaScript, which read some logs from my car, and I created the topic live car data. And you basically just put that in and say that you want to subscribe and send a body with that. And then what's really cool once you do that is you can then use this final endpoint in Qlik Sense to get records from your subscription that you made in point 2. So this is just a normal get call with nothing else. But what's interesting is when you call this REST API, it will automatically get the new incremental records which have been written to this topic. So you can kind of think of this as like an automatic incremental load, which can happen. So if I call this once, it'll do all the records that have been written to that topic. And then if I call that in 10 seconds later, it will just get me the new records in the last 10 seconds. So as you can see, that's pretty easy to use with Qlik Sense, this kind of incremental logic. So yeah, that's maybe we can jump into a demo of that, and I can show you how that works. So I just built a small app here. Let me just start some stuff in the background. So I will start basically this fake stream that or it's not fake data, but a stream. This stream will make the first two API calls, which I described. And now I can just starting basically the first data record is going. And I will start as well background just a QMC task just to start reloading the new data. And now you should hopefully soon see the data start to update. Yes. So we have 4 points already. Basically, it'll start updating almost in, I would say, near real time in Qlik Sense. So reading the data every few seconds and updating in the chart here. So yeah, it's possible to read from a Kafka stream and do so in near real time. And maybe not a use case that you would often see being done in Qlik Sense, but it is possible. And of course, all this is just standard Qlik Sense. There's no extensions or anything, no WebSocket connections or anything that needs to be built up. Just using the standard charts and everything, and even the standard reload mechanism as well. No APIs. I just created a task. We jump into the task here. I'm also drawing very slow here as well. In my records. If we jump into the task, it's very simple as well. It's just a normal reload task, which is basically reloading every time it's done loading itself. So it's like task inception. And that's kind of how I can get it to near real time, so every 2 or 3 seconds. But yeah, that's basically the first part of how, related to kind of streams, you can read data from a Kafka stream. Now, if anyone, maybe if you want to stop for some questions before I go to the second topic. Any questions or feedback?
We have 2 questions in the chat. One says, does it support the merge command?
Yeah, that would support the command. Yeah. Of course, you need something in your Kafka topic that would say if the record needs to be updated or deleted, etc. But that would be possible.
Okay. And Liran Sanwal asks if it's being populated in incremental mode, or how it is being populated.
For this demo, the script is very basic, I would say. So I'll just stop the stream and I can jump into the script. I didn't put much time to make it incremental or anything like that, but probably I would do it with merge or something like that. I just did a very, very simple, not complex moment where this is calling the REST connector. And of course, this will be only incremental values. And in my case, for this use case with the car data, it's always going to be incremental. So it doesn't really make that much of a difference. And I just basically load that. And then I save the values into a QVD on the first time, and then store everything in here. So every time it's loading, it's basically concatenating itself with the QED and then saving it as a QED, all the files. So it's a very, maybe there's better ways to do this script if you're if you're dealing with huge data volumes and stuff like that, like the merge or doing a partial reload or something like that. But for the case of the demo, this worked fine.
Great.
Okay. Any other kind of questions or anything? Should I keep going? I'll keep going then.
Yeah, we have none so far.
Okay, feel free to bring them up later as well. The next one, which is coming up, it's kind of related to one of the questions about the merge as well, you could say, or it contains things related to the merge, the new merge function, I should say. From current slide, 1 second. Yeah, so the second topic is Qlik sense incremental loads with Qlik Replicate. So there's some really cool things you can do with Qlik Replicate now, definitely with this new function in the engine that we have since February, this merge function. So you maybe remember doing an incremental load before. I should also mention that I took this from my colleague in Italy that works at Qlik as well. So he presented this at our virtual sales kickoff the other week, and I found it really interesting. So I did my own demo as well around what he did. So there's this standard solution, what we used to do for incremental loads, where you would basically, okay, maybe make a SQL statement for a certain amount of time. And then you'd basically need to load the entire QED file and say where not exists your key, and then kind of join that data together and save it at the end into QED. So this works quite well and for most use cases. But sometimes there is some cons to it. So definitely when it comes to kind of real-time data, and on the database side, you need some kind of modification time to do it well, or maybe an incremental ID or something. You have to do like a full table scan, which is not that great, and maybe increased load on the data source server a little bit. And it's a little bit harder to maintain as well. So there are some better ways to do this now, I would say, with the new merge function, but it works even better together with Qlik Replicate. So I'd like to kind of show this solution, how you can link Qlik Replicate with this incremental data load. So maybe I'll explain for people that don't know Qlik Replicate as well, what it does. So it's a new kind of product that we offer. It's totally not related to Qlik Sense or even kind of BI. It's more about data integration than anything else. So it focuses on, how can I land data from different systems into a landing area, basically a one-to-one copy in another database in real time and we do that using change data capture, which means we read the logs from the different databases or mainframe systems or even SaaS systems, things like that, to then only send the changes based on the log. So we're not doing like select statements on the databases and stuff like that. We're just reading the logs, and then we're able to land the data anywhere, basically. Most companies are using it these days to move data from on-premise to in the cloud. And there's also a second product in this Qlik data integration suite called Qlik Compose, which would then take the data that you've landed from on-premise normally into maybe a cloud target like Snowflake or AWS or something. And it will automatically build a data warehouse or data lake pipeline for you without any coding. So it's not really a part of this solution, but also good to know that it's there. So that's a little bit what Qlik Replicate does. It's able to land data basically in real time anywhere. And we can take advantage of that in Qlik Sense, particularly because, it gives us the data in real time. And it also creates a change tracking table. So basically a table which tells us which records are new, which records are updated, or which records have been deleted from the source database system. And then with some merging logic, we can create a really nice incremental QVD load. So I can show how that works. Before I do a demo, any questions on that? Because yeah, maybe Qlik Replicate is not always something that you guys work with. So if you got any questions on that, just let me know before I jump into the demo.
I have
Don't
nothing
be
in the
shy.
chat.
Okay. Then we go right to the demo, no problem. For the demo, I need to jump here into a machine. So this is the Qlik Replicate. I'll just jump here. Hopefully it still works. Yes. So this is Qlik Replicate. Like I said, it's for replicating data from one source to the other. And we can basically create a task in a matter of seconds to do that. So let's say that I want to create a new task. And let's say that I want to do SQL to, like, I could have data in an SQL server locally. Maybe I want to move it to an Azure service, not locally, so hosted in the cloud or something. And basically, in the beginning is the only time we will really do this full select star from the database to bring the data from point A to point B. And then this change data capture is what we call here apply changes, so that any new changes that come in will be reflected. And then very important in this area, in this step, if you click store changes, it will also create this table. So in this case, since I want to move data from SQL to Azure, it will create a table in Azure telling me what has changed in the SQL table. So I can use that table later when we do the merging. And I'm just going to click on OK. And now I need to define my replicate task, where I basically pick that SQL database. I think I want to do MySQL. I can just drag that here and drop it there. So that's my target. So when anything ever gets written to this database, it'll automatically get pushed to whatever target I put here. And that's the really cool thing. You can, with Replicate, I find you can choose anything. So I can choose like Databricks. I could make a Kafka stream here as well. So it's not just databases. Or S3, I could save it as file-based stuff. In this case, I'm just going to do Azure SQL. Let me just drop that in there. And then all I need to do is select some tables. So here I just take there's a north wind schema here. But basically I can select which tables I want to actually take from here. So I don't need to take all tables or anything, because a lot of databases might support sort of like replication stuff like this, but maybe don't have the ability to kind of select each table you want to have, etc. So I'm going to take all those tables and just hit OK. And normally I would just hit run, but this is our demo system, so I'm going to add a transformation here just to ensure that the schema gets renamed so that I don't overwrite other people's schemas. So I can just do that here, and just going to rename this to merge 2 and click finish and OK. And I can save the task. And the moment I hit run here, this task will be started. And in this moment, I will be copying the database from SQL to the Azure database. So you can kind of see it happening. Okay, 1 is completed, 2 is completed. These are the tables. It'll take a few seconds to load everything across. Done, 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 almost done, 6. In the meantime, I will log into my cloud tenant. Oh yeah, I already have that open here, I think. Boom, boom, boom. Takes just a moment. You can see it's probably done by now. 3 tables left.
Maybe we can cover some questions while we are waiting.
Sure.
There was one question regarding if what happens if the data source is not logging all the changes.
Good question. But generally, you can turn on the logging, or we don't always only go by the logs. Occasionally, there's other ways to do it as well. But generally, we go with the log-based tracking. CDC.
I mean, I had some issues with process mining applications where you also usually always have to change the problem with not logging everything. So one way is to use database triggers. But some changes you will never be able to log. That's what I found, depending on the problem you're having.
Yeah. Generally, we find a way, and there's kind of predetermined instructions per database what you can do or what you need to do to enable it. So it's pretty binary if you're able to support it or not.
Great. And there is another question: is how to trigger the Qlik Sense task to reload data from Qlik Replicate?
Yeah, at the moment, there's no real kind of API that you can trigger or something, but we'll see in a moment how you can basically almost get it in real time. So there are some options how you can pull some data from the tables that Qlik Replicate creates to do something like that. But there's no like API or something that you could say like, okay, now start the Qlik reload. I know on the roadmap we have it that we want to be able to, I think it might even be there already, create directly, instead of landing the data in another database, to land the data in a QBD, which would be then landing on the SaaS platform normally. So that would be a possibility.
Okay. And the last question, if you're exploring Replicate to get the CDC information, do you need to create the target destination? As in, no real need to move the data. We just want to update, insert, and delete data. Would that be possible?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, to be honest. I would need to check if that would be possible. Actually, I think that is possible, just based on, if I go back here into the new task, you have the apply changes and the full load. So it looks like it's possible just to store the changes, actually, to answer the question on the fly. I would need to double check if that really works, but it looks like that option is there, which is also cool. Yeah.
Great.
You could even just maybe even change it in the same database and kind of use Qlik Replicate for that. So it'd be cool. Other questions?
Not so far.
Okay. This is, it seems to be a bit stuck. Oh no, it's done now. Okay, good. Our VPN traffic is not very good today, so things can take a bit longer. So yeah, essentially now we have duplicated those tables from SQL into Azure, and now what's running is the change processing. So essentially, it's waiting for those changes to happen, and we'll push them to Azure as soon as it happens. So what we can do now maybe is we jump back into Qlik. I'll just go onto my cloud tenant here. I create an app which does the merge function already. So I will jump into the script. So first, what you always have to do here, and I named this merge 2, so we can change this to merge 2. And I'll just load. Obviously, at one point you'll have to do a full load. So I'm just doing the customers table. It's one of the tables that we had here. When I load that, that should work. We get our results here. And then we have the merge functionality. So what is the merge functionality? So it essentially just takes, if we look here, how you use it in the script, and I'll make my screen a bit bigger because it's quite small. You just use this merge command, and then you have to say, okay, what's the timestamp field from the data source that you're loading? And then you have to give a variable. So you just define this variable, and then this variable will get set to the max timestamp data that you have when you load this kind of the changes. And then you want to say, okay, on customer ID, your key basically. You could as well say on customer key and then date or something. If you had a concatenated key, you can just comma separate it there. But in this case, we just have one key, so it's easy. And then, of course, you want to concatenate that into the existing customers table. So if I ran this right now, it would load this full table and then perform these actions, which would be a bit counteractive, or wouldn't be the best thing to do, because yeah, you're loading the full table once and then going through all this, and in the end, the merges won't bring anything. But if you do a partial reload, then in a partial reload, the load of this table will be skipped, and only this will be done, the merge part. And then you can essentially add some data into the existing in-memory data model without having to load everything else. So that's the nice part of the partial reload. And how it works is, yeah, you just need to give each record in operation, so something like insert, update, or delete, and then it will automatically do that to the existing data that's in there. So I could just delete one record from the in-memory part by loading just one record from this table that says delete. So I don't need to reload everything in memory again, basically. So it's a lot quicker and more efficient, and yeah, new since February release, this merge function. So maybe we can test it out. Because if I go to the sheet here, I just have a table with all the data from those customers. And if I focus in on customer from Berlin, think I just have one customer. That's our one customer from Berlin. And what I can do if I'm just going to jump back to my virtual machine, and I'm going to change a record. So I'm just going to open up my database Beaver here. And I'm just going to write change here. And I'm going to save this. So it will be an update. That doesn't look good. Let me open it up again. One moment, SQL editor. And I'm just going to do select star from customers. And control enter. Yeah. And I'm going to just put here, the text is really small, but I'm just writing the word change here in the company name for our one customer from Berlin and hitting save. And that time it worked. So it saved the data. And if we jump quickly to Attunity, it's already been applied. So it's already there in the Azure SQL database. And now if I go back here, and if I click partial reload, it'll now do this partial reload, and you can see it's already gotten a change there. So this is a really nice, fast way to, when you have data that's changing a lot, to change your data. The only thing to watch for at the moment, like I said, it makes the most sense if you use it with the partial reload functionality. So a full reload wouldn't make much sense. And the partial reload is only available with the button. My VPN is acting up on me again, but the partial reload is only available with a button at the moment. So this is a standard Qlik button, which has been updated in February to do reloads, including partial reloads. Or if you trigger reloads through the API, then you can use the partial. I know it's planned to add some functionality to be able to kind of schedule that in an easier way, maybe in a task or something in the future. But that's basically the two ways you can do it now. So, and maybe just to jump back into the script, like to see what gets generated by this table here, this merge table, we can take a look. And I just select the data here. And I added this merge too. So that's kind of our separate database. And you can see for every table, there's this __ change table, so CT. And for customers, you can see it here. I've already made a few changes before just to test. Oh no, wait, this is a new merge one. And you can kind of see, okay, it says update and basically just gives us the new information. And that's essentially all the Qlik needs now with this merge function to do this update on the fly. It's just that update. And of course, if I insert a new record, it'll just be like insert, or if I delete, it will say delete, and it works the same. Also interesting, when you do a load from the script, it will also tell you, I'm not sure if it'll say it now, but yeah, merged updates, merged inserts, and merged deletes. So you always kind of get that feedback when you're using the merge function as well. So I think it's a really neat feature that we added in February that can be very useful when dealing with kind of near real-time data. And of course, it works really well with Qlik Replicate together because Qlik Replicate creates this change table, but you could do it with any data source as long as you just have something that says if it's an insert, update, or delete. It'll work well as very good as well, yeah. And go back to the PowerPoint. So that was the demo. So yeah, the pros, the performance, it's a lot lot better. You don't really need a modification time in the data source itself. Don't need to do this kind of full table scan. A lot less load on the source servers and things, and less data to move. And it's quite easy to maintain. Like to read the script, it's quite easier than some of the other stuff that you might have done in the past, etc. So it's a really nice option. So my colleague from Italy did some performance tests as well using the standard incremental reload, and he did a few tests here, I think 4, just to see what the difference is in the speed. So you see here the standard method in seconds and the record volume here, and you can see with the replicate method the differences. So it's really a lot faster. So for like 10 million records, took about 76 seconds, and only 10 seconds with this new method. So he kind of graphed it out here as well, and kind of see, okay, with more data records, then you get even faster times with the replicate, or a better performance with the replicate method. Yeah, and that's essentially what I wanted to show when it comes to those 2 topics. So the Kafka streaming and the Qlik Replicate incremental loads.
Well,
Any
thank
questions?
you. Yeah, I think the people
no
have
problem.
problems getting unmuted.
Don't be shy.
Yeah. So I try to unmute everyone from here.
You're gonna hear a lot of crying babies in 5, 4.
Okay, but so far we don't have any questions. At least not in the chat, and nobody wants to speak. Oh, there is one. Give me a second.
Yeah, I saw it. If they do garbage collection on the change table. I'm not sure, to be honest. I never checked, but one thing that is nice, which I didn't maybe mention, is that you have this last change date. So actually, if you really want to use this, you would probably say where header timestamp is greater than the last change date. Probably you do something like that, so that you're not always calling all records from the table. But that this part makes it easy. That Qlik will automatically create that variable for you. So, but I need to check into the garbage collection. I'm sure there's probably some settings in Qlik Replicate to do that.
I think the merge function is very cool, but since it's very new, maybe not everybody has had a chance to plug into it.
Yeah, I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for these near real-time use cases.
And do you know something about pricing? Because Agility was always known to be very expensive, and are there use cases for, let's say, mid-sized enterprises that they can maybe afford?
Yeah, I'm more the technical guy, so I don't know as much about the prices. I know that, yeah, definitely it was a tool used more by bigger enterprise companies. But I'm sure there are some flexible options. I don't think we changed anything too much on the licensing side in the past few weeks or months, but I know that they have a flexible pricing model. I know that they can do pricing models of different things, I believe.
Okay. Oh, I see a new question.
Yeah.
Do you need a task to reload itself to obtain near real-time data on app?
So it depends how you want to. There's maybe a few ways you would want to do it for the near real-time stuff. So the task inception is one way. The other thing you could always do is just thinking if you would want to maybe have some sort of script or something which just looks at this merge table for new records and then triggers a Qlik sense reload when that happens. Another thing that might be even interesting, you could maybe even, we have this other new company that we bought called Blender. And I know at least it's possible from here to do a lot of things. And you could call a reload or start a reload from here. Based on, and basically you can get that with a webhook. You could start the reload process. Although I guess that's not much different from using the QRS API either. In the best case, somewhere in the process, you would be able to send a webhook to the, or call the QRS API to do the real-time stuff.
Okay. One interesting question is, can you somehow lay out the differences between merge function and incremental load in a bit more detail?
Yeah, so the incremental load, what we used to do was, if we jump back here, I think, or too far, here, like slideshow from current slide. So what you used to do, or what I used to do a lot, was I would basically try to define what my new data is with the SQL, and usually with some sort of where and clause. And then this would always take the most time, is this, I would have to reload the entire QED and only say, okay, where it doesn't exist already. So I would load only the new change records, right, for my keys. And then here I would reload the entire QED only where it exists in this where statement. And this would always be a bit slow, or I would say slower, definitely for real-time use cases. I mean, still pretty quick, definitely when you're using QEDs and stuff, but this happens slow because we have to kind of reload and go through all the records. And then you need to combine them together and save it. So that took some time. And you also need to continuously make queries on the source system here as well. So you have a little bit more dependency on the source system, more like batch level. And then with the merge, what we essentially do, if I just jump back to the script, is first of all, with replicate, you're just in real time pushing the data somewhere, so it's quite light, and you have this change table written. And with merge, you can just combine it automatically with whatever's in memory. So you don't really need to fully load this again always when you do the partial reload. So you would reload the full table just once, and then with the merge, you basically only load a few records which just get appended to the existing customers table, which you've already loaded before. So you have to, in the end, load and check less data with this new merge function, which in the end, you saw the PowerPoint at the end, means that it works a lot faster then, because you have to deal with less data. And for me, it's also a lot easier to read and understand than most kind of incremental loads. I mean, the one I wrote up here, or my colleague wrote up here, is quite new. and easy to follow. I mean, some of them are more complex than that. Christoph asked if the merge is also coming to Qlik View. Oh, and Matthias wrote yes. I guess it is. I didn't know that, so I guess it is coming to Qlik View as well, because it's most of the things that we do in the engine go to Qlik View as well. So this is a purely engine-based thing that we've done, basically. Any other questions, guys or girls? There's a good question here about the comparison of investment versus load speed with Replicate, because instead of incremental load, you need resource to run Replicate, store the CT table, etc. We didn't do any in-depth analysis of that, I would say, but Replicate itself is something where you don't need a lot of resources, so the server requirements are quite small. You can look them up on our help site, and so it's not like you need a lot of resources. Of course, you do have to move the data to get that change data capture, although as we found out, I think it is possible just to store the changes as well. So then that should be done quite quickly and in real time. So it could be quite low, the amount of load that you would need. And I guess the idea would be, I mean, I'm not sure if it would make sense if you just, for maybe one use case or something, try to use Qlik Replicate just for that. You could, of course, other databases, or you might be able to hook up other databases to support this kind of labeling or change tables that we can use with merge. But I think the idea would be that if you use Replicate, you can use it for then a lot of other things as well. So even non-Qlik things. So maybe you want to create a Kafka stream for another service, or you want to create a Snowflake data warehouse, or you want to create a data lake. Lots of other use cases for Replicate, which would make it worthwhile to invest in. Maybe if you just need it for just this one specific use case, it might not be the best thing to do, but it works pretty good. If merge will work with session apps, I don't see why not, because it's essentially just script. So you can run script on session apps. So I would assume it would work, but that's not a 100% guarantee. Let's go to lots of good questions. I can share the slides afterward as well, if you guys want them.
Yeah, please send them to me. I usually put them on Google Drive and link it in the Meetup group.
Yeah.
And unless there are more questions, thank you very much for sharing this information.
No problem.
As we can see from the comments, it was very interested and kept the attention of our listeners. Maybe just a little hint from my side regarding the next session. I'm currently a little busy, so it could be that we skip 1 month and we have the next meetup in April. But let's see, maybe I can figure something out in brief. But unless you hear from me in the next 1 or 2 weeks, the next session should be expected in April. Yeah. And
okay.
Yeah, so therefore we can conclude. Thank you again, Riley.
There was one last question coming in from Jason, maybe in the chat.
Yeah. the question is, can you confirm that only the updated part of the in RAM model will be replaced in RAM, or does the whole app get swapped? So I believe it's just the updated part of in RAM and not the whole app. But in the end, I don't think it really matters that much. I don't think what happens, because I think this graph shows a lot that basically, much faster than the old way of doing, basically loading full table. What happens in the back end could be that we swap app, but do it in much more efficient way. But from what I've seen from the early indicators is that it's probably just replacing the updated part in the RAM. Cool. Then yeah, I think we're pretty much done, right? Do you want to say anything else? Right?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Unless we have no more questions. Thank you again, and see you on the next meetup.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.